Yeah, so originally there was someone else who was going to talk, and they had actually done a proper exchange through RCHS. So I didn't put much detail into my presentations, thinking that I would just be filling the gaps from them. But now I'm going first with a couple of slides on how to apply for a visa and then holiday photos. So here we go. I wrote this all in Indonesian, even though I'm speaking in English. But I wrote it all like last night, so if there's any serious grammatical errors, which I'm sure there is, that's one of the reasons why that is. So background mine, which basically, you just basically mentioned this. So I did a couple of years undergraduate of studying Indonesian, but I basically ended that when I found it very difficult to actually keep up just doing, say, 4 hours of classes at a university and not speaking outside the class. For 2 years, so by the end we had an oral presentation and I could basically say nothing, so I just thought I'll just give this up. And then I eventually did honours, so like master's degree, that's S2, and I did it about Indonesian foreign policy, and during that I also met a number of students from Indonesia, and it sort of inspired me to regain my interest in Bahasa Indonesia. So during that, so that's pretty much all of that information. And then I began, I received a scholarship to study a PhD at Flinders University, and as you've mentioned, it's on domestic politics and their influences on Indonesian foreign policy. So the first time I went to Indonesia was in the beginning of 2013, in January, where I received a $750 scholarship from Flinders University to attend the International Students Conference in Universitas Katolik Parihanggan in Bandung, Unpar. So I went there for a week, which is the first time I'd ever been to Indonesia, despite having written a honours thesis on it, and very much enjoyed that experience, and very much inspired me to regain my interest in studying Indonesian language. So then I decided I completely forgot the name and can't remember it, but I basically paused my PhD. Marianne, what is that called? When you pause your PhD for a period of time? No one knows what this is called, but it's something that I did. Like an intermission kind of thing, so intermission pause, whatever that's called. I did that for 6 months, and I went to Universitas Gadjah Mada and studied Indonesian for 6 months. Unfortunately, because I'm a PhD student and not an undergraduate student, there are no support for exchange students in Australia. There potentially is now with the current government and its Colombo plan, but at the time there was absolutely no support and no one was willing to give me any support, so I had to pay for it myself. Luckily, it's very, very cheap to live in Jogja, so it didn't actually cost me so some of the things I've got here are just sort of, I didn't know what the audience would be, so I thought there might be some Australians here, but how you actually prepare to go and study in Indonesia. So without any help, so if you get a scholarship and you get an exchange organisation like RCHS to help you, they will organise all the visas and all the stuff you need to do. But if you don't have that, you've got to do it all by yourself, which is you have to go through the Indonesian bureaucracy yourself and send all the forms to the university, which is very difficult. Luckily for me, when I first went to Indonesia, went to Bandung, I met a girl, a Chinese student meeting there, and started dating her, and she was my girlfriend. So she was based in Jogja. She's studying at Atmajaya in Jogja, and was able to help me. And I seriously doubt I would have been able to do things like get forms and stuff to UGM and constantly being like, oh, have you done my forms yet? Have you done my forms yet? If she wasn't there. So it's probably pretty close to impossible to do by yourself being outside the country. What else? That's pretty much it. It's fairly difficult to do. So for example, the forms that you have to get, well, there's a number of them. This isn't even all of them. This is just so I can find on my computer. So you have to get admission forms. You've got to give them a bank statement to show how much money you've got. They want your passport. They want your CV. They want your academic record. I had to get my supervisor Marianne to write me a sort of recommendation letter. I had to go to the doctor and get a good health certificate. So you've got to do every single one of these things You had to get a formal photograph, and all sorts of things. And then when you eventually, so one of the benefits of not doing it through, even though if you do architecture, you basically get a scholarship and you get money. If you do it by yourself, it actually doesn't cost that much. This was at a time when the US dollar wasn't as horribly high as it is now, so that was actually about $1,300 rather than being $1,700 or whatever it would be now. So before I went to UGM, I wanted to study a bit before. I went to UGM and studied Indonesian, so I went to Wisma Bahasa, which is a language school in Yogyakarta, and stayed there for 2 months. In order to go there, I had to get a social budaya visa, a socio-cultural visa, and they basically, if you have a language school or someone who will sponsor you in Indonesia, they can provide you a sponsorship letter that allows you to apply for this social budaya visa, which is something you can actually do from here. You just get a number of, I think I've got, so there's still a long list of things that you need to get, but you get that and you just send it off to the embassy and they eventually send your passport back with a visa on it. So that's not that difficult. That's not much else in there. Studying at UGM was a very good experience. So what's good, you can study the actual language itself. But then there's also another number of topics you do, so if anyone, there's no Australian students here, but if there was Australian students here, there are a number of topics you can choose. So you can choose elective topics. I can't read this. This is one of 4 pages of elective topics you can choose. So there's all sorts of things from everything you can possibly think of. So I stayed at a KOS, which is like a boarding house in Demangan Baru. It costs 1.5 million rupiah a month, which is about 150 Australian dollars. After 6 months, that dropped to 1,4 juta, which is 1.25 million, which is $125. It had air conditioning, it had hot water, and unfortunately had an infestation of cockroaches as well. Overall, it was quite good. At ICOS, there was many students from, there you go, that's one spelling mistake here, that's my answer on my CISWA. From other countries, mainly from Australia, Japan and Germany, and it was quite good to live there. And then I've just got, I don't know how much time I've got left. What if I do?
14.
How much?
8.
8. Okay, well, I'm not going to use all that. The rest of us got photographs from things that happened in Jogja. This is Warrior, so these are men that dress as women. There's a big thing about that in Jogja, so you'll be confronted with that on an almost daily basis, depending on where you go. The Warriors seem to quite like me for some reason. So getting sick, you're likely to get sick in Indonesia. So these are medicine for diarrhea, which you'll probably end up buying. So it's likely to get sick, but just sort of like stomach bugs and stuff like that. The hospital, so I eventually got slightly more sick than that, but the hospitals, this was the hospital, the Protestant hospital near UGM, very good, very professional, and phenomenally cheap. So the first time I went there, and they did some tests, and they gave me some drugs and stuff like that, and it cost something like $12 to go see the doctor and to have tests done and to be prescribed antibiotics and stuff like that. So there's some things that just I found interesting. So this is me at Pantai Paling so beach near Jogja. So this is after the first month that I was in there, and it was a bit of a culture shock and stuff like that. So me and my girlfriend decided to go to the beach. I thought, the beach would be like Australia, it'd be nice and relaxing and stuff like that. This was in Christmas when it was Tanggal Merah, so public holiday. It was phenomenally busy. And it was basically, and everyone wanted to take a photo with me at the beach. And it was near the most confronting experience I've ever had in my entire life. So I'm not particularly happy with it. There's just people everywhere, there's people selling stuff, there's plastic everywhere. Well, when the tide comes in, plastic's gone, tide goes out. But it is quite a good experience, and the beach is quite enjoyable in Indonesia, but it was a big culture shock because it wasn't like the beach in Adelaide. Weather, so there's quite interesting weather experiences. So that's, on the left is what it looked like out of my KOS on a normal day, raining. And then this was after Mount Kelut, the volcano exploded and covered Jogja in ash. So one day I woke up and opened my window, and it looked like I was in the Middle East, and I didn't know what had happened, but it was ash and not sand. Things you get at this is just what photos I had picked out. Homework, so this is just some of the homework that you can get at Indonesia when you're studying at INCLs. I'm pretty sure some of those are wrong, but that's... So also Indonesia, general services, very cheap. So this is me getting my hair cut just down the road. This costs 60 cents to get your hair cut. To get the exact same haircut done slightly less professionally in Australia costs me $25. 60 cents in Georgia. So these are some things happening. So I was there during the legislative elections. So legislative elections, Georgia is a big PDIP town, so you had these things of about 100 people would ride by in their motorbike, constantly going rum, 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 rum to make as much noise as possible, flying flags and stuff like that, which I don't think actually benefited them because it just seemed to annoy everybody. So monkeys, you'll see lots and lots of monkeys in Indonesia. So this would be up towards the mountain. So what's the mountain over Georgia? Merapi, yeah. So this is up the natural park. There's the national park in Merapi. So monkeys, don't get that in Australia. You get the experience of driving around on a motorbike, moped in Indonesia. So you get used to doing that. Petrol was still. This was before they got rid of the the subsidy. So this was before the subsidy. So petrol was still very, very cheap at that point. So very beautiful Indonesia. So this is Kalimanjaro, which are islands to the north of central Java. So photos, everyone constantly wants to take photos with you. So this was at Borobudur. Photos with just heaps and heaps of Indonesian children. I was there during the presidential elections, so this was me actually in Solo, Jokowi's hometown, and there were these big things everywhere that you could go and stand and take a photo. This is the election meme of the time. So here's a photo of the class. So he was the Tata Bahasa teacher, so the vocabulary teacher. He didn't like me very much because I wasn't very good at vocabulary. The picture there, I don't know if you can see it, was his attempt to draw a goat, I believe, which is one of the worst drawings I've ever seen. And there's graduation. There was me graduating from INCLs, even though UGM never actually sent me my results. I still don't necessarily know how well or not well I actually did. And just as I thought, there might be some plans here. So the supermarket in Indonesia. So almost any general goods that you want, you can buy in Indonesia. So you're not starved for choice or anything. And that's the end of my slideshow.